तुम्हारे सभी रिश्तेदार, चाचा चाची, ताया ताई, फूफा फूफी, नाना नानी, मौसा मौसी, दादा दादी, तुम्हारे पड़ोसी के बच्चे, तुम्हारे अपार्टमेंट का चौकीदार, तुम्हारे अपार्टमेंट के चौकीदार का कुत्ता, तुम्हारे पड़ोस की चुगली करने वाली आंटी, तुम्हारे पड़ोस की चुगली करने वाली आंटी का पति, उनके बच्चे, उनके पड़ोसी, सबको सिर्फ तुमसे बस एक ही क्वेश्चन पूछने में इंटरेस्ट है, कितने मार्क्स आए? 70% आए या 80% आए या 75% आए या 90% आए? डिस्टिंक्शन मिली, पास हुआ, टॉप किया, फेल किया? अरे फेल तो नहीं हो गए, अरे मेरे पड़ोसी के तो बच्चे के इतने मार्क्स आए, अरे शर्मा जी के बेटे के तो 99% आए, तुम्हारे कितने आए?
करो, हाथ जोड़ के मैं गुजारिश करता हूँ।
98% is actually a very tough job, especially in class 12 board exams, where you have to also prepare for different competitive exams. What made me do this podcast is that I was thinking whether it's sheer hard work or there could be some smart strategies applied which ensures that you get really good scores in your board exam. Getting good scores in your board exams ensures that you get a lot of confidence in life. Today we will be talking to Aditi, who had an amazing journey and she has scored 98% in her exams in class 12 boards. She will be giving us some amazing tips and tricks and strategies she deployed to score such a high marks. Let's get started.
रुको जरा, सबर करो, बोला धक्का बुक्की नहीं करने का, आराम से लेने का. हाँ.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Aditi, can you tell us a little bit about your background? I have already given an introduction, but I just wanted to hear it from you. Tell us a little bit about your life journey, your journey from class 1 to 12th, a little bit about how has life been so far.
So, ever since I was small, I've always been described as talkative, and people say that I'm curious and I ask a lot of questions about everything. And, and I've also been changing a lot of schools, like especially, I think it became steady around class 5, class 4 or 5. So before that, I used to change a lot of schools. And so I completed my class 4 to 10 and actually 4 to 12 in the same school itself. So,
Right. And you have been here in Bangalore since class 1, or have you changed cities as well?
I've been in Bangalore since class 1, yeah.
Right. Okay, let's get to the point actually. You have scored 98% in 12th board exams, CBSE board exams, right? I mean, it's a dream for many, and yeah, I know it's very hard to score such a high score, right? I just wanted you to talk a little bit about each subjects and how did you find them? What were the subjects you had in class 12, and how did you find them?
So I had 5 subjects. So I had physics, chemistry, math, computer science, and English. And I think out of all of the 5, I think maths was maybe the most challenging for me in class 12. But
Right.
in class 11, it was physics which was the most challenging for me.
And how about chemistry? Did you like chemistry?
Yeah, I like chemistry.
Okay, cool. So let us actually start from 10th, right?
Okay.
Can you talk about a little bit about your journey from 10th to 12th? How was it in 10th, and what did you find different in 12th?
Okay. So in actually 10th, I was what they call the COVID batch. So it was
Oh, okay.
online. And we had a different format of board exams. We had it twice a year. So we had it in 2 phases basically. And so most of my studying 10th was online, the classes and all of the study material, everything. And even the pattern of the board exam was completely different. So
Right,
12th was my actual, like the proper board exam, the full length one.
right. Um, and what was the difference? Like what was
moving from 10th to 11th, from a, like, was it hard? Like, did you find 11th harder than 10th? Way
Yes,
harder than
much
10th?
way harder than 10th. So 11th was like a completely different world from 10th. And so I did not have a few of my subjects from 10th. So I had opted for the science stream. And it was very much, deep into physics, chemistry, and math. And the level of studying needed was much higher. And it took time to adapt to that.
Aditi, one question which comes to my mind is that once you had given your 10th board exams, did you aspire from that point of time that you need to score, or you need to be one of the toppers, or you need to really have a high score in 12th? Or was it something which came organically?
Actually, so after giving my 10th board exams, I always had this thought that what if I get more than my 10th in my 12th? So I never had the thought of dipping down, but yeah, I just kind of went with the flow. I wanted to maintain what I managed to do in 10th.
Right. Um, let's talk about your strategy for each of the subject. One, I want to know a little bit about your strategy in 11th for each of the subject, and then I also wanted to know that what was the trigger point? When did you think that now I need to change gears? So let's start with the trigger point, and then we'll come to the strategy.
Okay, so the trigger point was probably so in 11th, I failed a subject, which is
Oh,
physics.
really?
Yeah, which is physics actually. And that came as a shock to me. And that's when it hit me that, okay, maybe what I was doing in 10th is not going to work for 11th, and I need to find a completely different strategy. And that's when I slowly started building up the foundation for my 12th so that, the start of 12th will be smooth for me and I can maintain consistency throughout 12th. So that kind of started for me mid of 11th.
What were the reasons when you introspect? Why did you flunk your exams?
I was so basically for me, what happened personally was that after seeing my score in 10th, I was overconfident, you could say that. And I thought that, everything would be a breeze after this, which was very much not true. And I took things very lightly. And I was not serious about my studies, as serious as I should have been. So, which is what resulted in that.
Right. Um, so Aditi, it's an interesting story and it's an amazing story that even after flunking a physics exam in 11th, you eventually uh, topped your batch and you scored a 98%. Like, it's an inspiration for many people who probably, leave that hope after the results are not so great at uh, in 11th. And 11th is also a kind of a foundation where you start laying the foundation at least. It's kind of a
Yes.
launch pad where you work hard and then you graduate to 12th and then you try and hit it hard. Yeah, the one thing I always wanted to know was that what was your strategy um, for preparing for the 12th board? Let's start from 11th. Like, when did it trigger that, this is the time when you need to actually change gears? And then, how did you create a plan or what was your strategy?
So the trigger point, so when I actually realized that I need to start taking things seriously was when in 11th I failed a subject and it was very shocking to me and I was not expecting that from myself, and that's when I realized that what worked for me in 10th is not going to work for me in 11th and I need to adapt a completely new strategy, and that's when I slowly started building up the foundation for my 12th. So my
And
strat,
yeah, carry on.
no, so what I think led to that was that my strategy in 11th was all over the place, and yeah.
And then how did you like stay focused and what was your actual plan? How did you work out your plan?
So like I said, in 11th I faced a failure, and I learned from that, And from then on, I slowly started finding out what works for me and how much time I should give for each subject. And I basically gauge that through my marks and based on my understanding in the class. If I'm able to grasp some chapters very easily, then I would say that, okay, maybe this is a strong chapter, does not need that much of my time. And some chapters, say for example, calculus, which was very heavy weightage and a heavy topic in general, I would realize, okay, this needs more of my time. So I would give that more of my time. So yeah,
And you followed this strategy across subjects, right?
across subjects, yes.
How many hours did you study, Aditi, if I can ask?
So my school was regular up till November. I had regular classes at school, so I would come back home and I think maybe around an average of 4 hours. And so from November onwards, we had study leave for our board exams. So
This is in, you're talking about in 12th, right?
in 12th, yes, in 12th.
Right. How about 11? I mean, the point from where you flunked, like, when you were picking yourself up, how much effort did you give?
Right. So before I fail that test, it would be very little. I would not study as much. So in 10th, I remember I would study around maybe 3 hours a day, 2 hours a day, and that seemed to suffice. But in 11th, that was not the case, and I had not realized that yet. So then after failing that test, I realized that, okay, I need to put in more time and more effort. And I slowly started. So it wasn't a sudden jump, it wasn't suddenly that, okay, this, like one day I was studying 2 hours and the next day I was studying 5 hours. So I slowly started increasing my study time. So that, the start of 12th, I was able to comfortably focus for around 4 to 5 hours of studying.
Right. And like, based on your plan, can you give a breakup as to like how much hours did you put on each subject?
So that's not very quantitative as it fluctuated, depending on the topics which were being covered. So
Right.
I sometimes say for example in math, if we were doing calculus in school and in chemistry, if we were doing organic, which is a considerably lighter topic, then I would be spending more time on math than with respect to chemistry. But if it was the other way around, then maybe I would spend more time on chemistry and lesser time on math. So it's all dependent on how I'm dealing with what is being taught, if it is heavy for me or if it is considerably lighter.
Right. Uh, Aditi, now let's drill down on each of the subject. Right.
Yeah.
Let's start with maths.
Okay.
What did you do? How did you go about it? How much did you score? Which were the books you followed?
So math was actually a very weak subject for me, whole of 11th, and I had actually scored the least in math during my 11th finals. So then I realized that math is something which requires everyday practice. Like whether you have the mood for it or you don't, maybe it could be 1 hour or just 30 minutes even, but you need to stay in touch. It's a kind of subject that you cannot just jump back to after a long break. You have to be in touch with math. And that's what worked for me. I made sure that, whatever was being taught in school, I'd come home and do a few sums, maybe for 30 minutes, maybe for an hour. So I would make sure that every day there was some math done.
Right.
So
And what were the key books that you followed?
for math, so in 11th and 12th, math is very vast. And so the board itself prescribes a book, NCRT, which
Right.
everybody is familiar with. And I feel like NCRT is more than enough. If you've done every single sum of NCRT, you're pretty much good to go. And but then again, like some maybe if you have the urge that okay, I need to do some high level sums, then maybe R.S. Agarwal or R.D. Sharma. But if you ask me personally, I was sticking to NCRT, like each and
Right.
every sum of NCRT.
Um, how much did PYQ, the previous year question papers, help?
Yes, a lot. And what I did was that I left the previous year question papers for during the peak exam time. As in the days before the exam, the 4 or 5 study leaves which were given to us, I only did the previous year paper. So that time I did not touch the textbooks.
Oh, so only during boards, the breaks which you had between
Yes.
each paper, you started doing the previous year question papers. Before
Yeah.
that, you had actually not touched it.
No, not really.
Cool. And then let's get to physics.
Yeah. So
How do you
physics.
prepare for physics for the board?
So physics. So for physics, I used this book called SL Aurora, and that proved to be really helpful. The questions which were given in it. It also had theory for each subject, and I feel like in physics, the theory is just as much as is just as important as the numerical part. So
Right.
yeah, and it's a very tricky subject, and it takes time getting your way around it. But I would say that I used NCRT and SL Aurora in balance. And of course, the previous year papers, those were very helpful for physics. And from
Right.
what I feel, that the actual board paper is, for physics especially, is almost similar to the previous year papers. A lot of the previous year questions are repeated. At least for me, I found multiple previous year questions in my paper.
Oh, so actually, PY doing the previous year question papers is useful, at least last
Really
5 to 6 years.
helpful for physics. Yes.
Right. And what's the breakup generally, Aditi? How much of numericals do you get in board and how much of it is theory?
It can actually vary year to year. But I feel like it's an equal weightage, and derivations in physics are really important.
Right.
And yeah, but
Okay,
I
so
feel
going
like,
through those. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's 50-50, There are
Okay.
numericals which require theoretical applications. Like
Right.
it.
And does NCRT, I mean, you would have an NCRT book also, right? On top of that, you did SL Aurora, or is it?
Yes, me personally, I kind of preferred SL Aurora over NCRT for physics, although it's a personal preference. It's not for
Right.
everybody. So I was not really able to find my connection with the NCRT book of physics. The language, it was not very friendly to me. So I
Right.
turned to SL Aurora for physics.
Okay. And then let's get to chemistry.
Yeah. So chemistry was actually my favorite subject. And for
Okay, awesome.
chemistry, yeah, so for chemistry, I did a whole of NCRT, line by line. And I don't
Uh,
think I touched any other book for chemistry. Just I made my little notes on the textbooks and I read each and every line. And what I feel for chemistry is that whatever you think is irrelevant is going to be the most important part, and that's what they're gonna ask in the exam too. And again, for chemistry, previous year questions are a must. You have to do them. It's
right.
it's very repetitive. Yeah.
And how far back in the history do you need to go? Like like 5 years, 6 years? Question
Uh,
papers are good enough?
it it actually depends. Some books they publish, all the way up from 2000, and some books just, they touch upon the recent years, like from 2018. I feel like that doesn't make much of a difference. As long as your concepts are clear, as long as you feel like you're doing a variety of questions, you should be good to go. So I never
Right.
really paid attention to how far back it goes, the questions.
Okay. Um, Aditi, I'll come to, so my understanding is when you are in, 10, 11th and 12th, you're also parallelly preparing for competitive exams, right?
Huh.
So you also understand that some part of your board preparations does happen when you actually go ahead and prepare for competitive exams, right?
Yeah.
But one thing which I really wanted to ask was, one, how did you manage English and how much did you score in English?
In English, I scored a 98,
Wow.
and and I was very lucky to have one of the best English teachers. And what I made sure was that I would make little footnotes or annotations. So when I read the chapter, whatever I take away from each line, or let's say the moral of the story, I would always make notes about it. And for writing skills, I feel like the format is the most important part. Uh, and then also, I feel like reading and not the reading, like not textbook reading, as in extra reading from your interest. That also factors in and is really helpful towards English. to crack English.
So, were you a avid reader since childhood, or like that? Did that come to you naturally, or did you start reading in 11th and 12th?
No, I've been an avid reader since childhood. So I've always
Okay,
loved books and I've loved reading. So,
okay,
so I've
that really
naturally
helped,
also loved English as a subject. Yeah.
right? But Aditi, tell me, how do you like? See, one thing is knowing an answer, right? Especially in subject like English. I can understand a subject like a mathematics or a physics, even to an extent chemistry, where I mean, um, you have a format and you know pretty much how to present the answers, right? But in English, how do you like? You have scored amazingly well. 98 out of 100 is like I don't know why did they even cut off that those 2 marks, but how do you present the answers? What's the trick there, especially in board
Um,
exams?
For English, I would say not to use bullet points in your answers, even if it feels tempting, because what we are taught that in all of our other subjects, say for example
Right,
physics and chemistry, the theory answer should be in points. It should be
right,
structured and it should be easy to read. But in English, we should not make that mistake. It has to be a paragraph. It should be lengthy, and also be careful of the word limit. You don't want to like overshoot it. That is
right.
yeah, I think teachers also care about that. And of course, it shouldn't matter, but handwriting also matters to some extent.
That's a
I,
good point, actually.
yeah, the neater your presentation, unfortunately, means more marks. And we'd been told that by our teacher too. And
Right.
yeah,
So again, is that something you practiced, or it's something which came very naturally to you,
the handwriting.
the handwriting?
Uh,
Because if someone
I
tells me to improve your handwriting in 11th and 12th, it's for me it's not going to happen.
no, I've always been told I have a good handwriting, so that wasn't an issue for me.
So you're blessed in that sense,
Yeah, I got lucky there.
right? Um, Aditi, one thing was that, see, once you have now you had a plan since 11th, and you kind of ramped up on that plan. You executed it well. Let's get down to the days just before the exams, right? What was your revision strategy? Like, I'm sure, like, you would have completed your basic syllabus just before the exams. But I'm talking about the last 15 days and the examination part, like, because you have your breaks and, 4 or 5 days of breaks for each of the exams. What was your revision strategy? Are you the one who would burn the midnight oil and, revise the entire thing before you go for the exam? Or what did you do?
Right before the exam, I would make sure that I got good sleep.
Right,
8 hours must, because I didn't want to take the risk of not having a fresh mind on the day of the exam. And I also made sure to not leave anything new for the last days. If there was any hard topic or something which I was new to me, I did not want to learn it on the days just before the exam. I made sure to finish all of that up and before itself. And just before the exam, for each subject, I made sure to do the previous year papers and also the previous year questions also. So those are two separate things. So you get like a question bank with only the previous year questions, and you also get previous year papers, which are the entire sample. I mean, not sample papers, solved papers. So I did both of those, and that was revision enough for me, I think. And for my weaker chapters, I went back to NCRT and I did NCRT thoroughly. But I did not have the
right.
time to do that for all the chapters. So I did that only for my weaker chapters.
Okay. And did you leave any chapter?
For the board exam, no, no. But for my
In
11th
it,
final, I did. I left a few chapters, I remember. It's very
right,
vast, the syllabus. It's huge.
right. But for the board exams, you definitely covered everything. So there
Yeah,
could be a weightage where you're strong on something and you're relatively weak on something, and your revision strategy was basically ensuring your weaker chapters are revised before you get to the exam day.
yes.
Awesome. And so this was a strategy, and you scored a 98%, right? My question to you is, Aditi, what does a 98% mean to you? What is 98? How has life changed after that?
Uh, Not that big of a change. And in the end, it's just a number. And I feel like, it's just seeing my hard work paid off. It feels nice. It's like validation that hard work does actually pay off. But yes, and also I remember that in 10th, what I scored from, I did gain confidence, a lot of confidence actually, which led to my 11th being rocky. So I made sure that, this doesn't get to my head, that I just gain enough confidence to be the right amount of
Right,
confident.
right. Cool. Coming back to the competitive exam piece of it. So there are a lot of people who would prepare for competitive exams and boards simultaneously. How do you manage that? Because at times, you may have to dive deeper into subjects for competitive exams. You may have to cover more some of the syllabus which is actually not covered in your boards. How do you divide that time, and what was your strategy there?
Um, so it's actually very hard to strike a balance, studying for competitive and studying for school. And I actually admire anybody who actually finds that balance and manages to remain consistent in it because I was not able to do that. And so what I did for competitive exams is I waited till my boards got over and then I fully focused on competitive exams because I found out that for me, focusing on both did not work because I was lacking in both places. So I thought, okay, instead of, not doing good in both places, why not just focus one at a time and then manage it? So around November, December, I kind of stopped my competitive exam preparation and I just focused fully on boards for 2, 3 months. And then once my boards got over, I focused on competitive exams.
Right. So
So
you ensured that you have one priority and you kind of
yeah,
100% focused onto that.
yeah.
Aditi, did you take tuitions or was it pretty much you were on your own?
No, I was kind of doing it on my own up till November, December, but then I realized that, okay, to truly boost my preparation, I will be needing extra help. So then I joined tuitions, and that really proved to be helpful for me.
What did they do differently in tuitions?
So around the time I joined, which was November, December, that time they had started revision of all of the chapters. So they had already finished teaching everything by then. They'd covered the
Right.
syllabus and I just joined and they started revision. So basically what they did in revision was that they covered the previous year question. So they wouldn't teach the theory all over again. Instead, they just made us revise through questions itself. So they would give the previous year questions, a few, maybe we'd solve around 15, 20 per class and that would revise the entire topic for us. So that proved to be really helpful for me.
So basically, if I get it right, you only joined the tuitions for revision, and that was probably
Yeah,
at the last leg of your
yeah,
preparations.
yeah.
Awesome. Um, so we have talked a lot about your strategy, your plan, and eventually you succeeded. I also want to understand a little bit about your life beyond preparations, and I just wanted to understand how does it help you in prepare. For example, did you have friends? Did you hang out? Did you enjoy? Or it was pretty much like close the door and keep studying.
It so I made sure that when I'm studying, I'm completely focused on my studying, and when I'm enjoying, and not a single thought about studying in my head.
Right.
So I yeah. So I did have my friend group and they were very supportive. And we went out a lot and we enjoyed and we had fun and it wasn't always sitting on the first bench in class focusing. Sometimes we would, take things lightly. We would relax, we would bunk our classes, we had the typical school life. So it's not like we sacrificed everything, but we also made sure that we stay focused.
Wow, and that's interesting, right? And so did that part of life de-stress you
Yeah,
and ensure
it
that
did.
you stay focused?
Yeah, it's very vital to my preparation.
Right. Um, I think did parents play a role in ensuring that you stay focused?
Um, Ensuring that I stay focused, they did not really pressure me. They didn't force me to study when I did not feel like it. That was kind of up to me because that was essentially my responsibility. And
Right.
they provided constant support, obviously, but I never faced any pressure of any kind.
Okay. So basically, you were off the hook there.
Yeah. It was never, yeah, they were never telling me, like sit and study. That was never something I heard.
Right. And that helped, right?
Yeah, that helped a lot.
Um, what were the other things you did apart from studies? What were your hobbies?
So like I mentioned, I'm an avid reader and I love reading, and books are kind of an escape from reality. And whenever it wasn't peak exam time, whenever things were a little more chiller and I did not have to study as much, I would often pick up a book or maybe a series and I would start reading. And of course, I like going out with my friends and hanging around with them. So yeah,
Who are your favorite authors, Aditi?
my favorite authors. It's more than a favorite author. I have a favorite genre. I
Okay,
like thrillers. I like thrillers a lot. So
right. Which was the last one you read?
the last one I read, it was The Housemaid.
Okay,
Yeah, by Frida McFadden. If I'm not wrong, yeah, Frida McFadden.
nice. Um, Now, Aditi, coming back to your professional life, which is on course now, what are your aspirations? What do you want to do now in life?
So my aspirations are, so I'm going to join college in a few months, and I want to do well in college. I want to pick up, I want to get into all of the different clubs and experience college life. But I also want to stay focused on my academics just as well as I did in 12th. I want to keep that up. And I also aspire to write a book someday, maybe
Wow.
later on.
And what
So,
would it be a thriller as well?
yeah, maybe a thriller or maybe a dystopian. Haven't really thought about it yet.
Right.
Yeah, maybe since I'm free now, I will start thinking about that. Start working on it.
Cool.
Never too
Awesome.
early.
Yeah. Aditi, someone who's aspiring to score as good as you have done in 12th, say someone who's studying in 8th, ninth, 10th, 11th, what would you like to tell them? If someone comes to you for guidance, what would be your 2 cents to them?
Uh, to trust themselves that even if things seem to be going really bad at this particular moment of time, it is up to you how you control the situation and what you contribute towards yourself, towards your future. And there's a saying that you can't control the wind, but you can control the sail. Basically, you can't control what happens to you. If the paper is hard, that's not in your control, but you can control how you react. You can control, if you're sad and you decide that, okay, I'm not going to study anymore, then that's how you react to that. But if you take away that, okay, maybe there's always a next test, I can always do better in the next test, and you motivate yourself like that, then that's how you react to that, a positive reaction.
Okay. So basically, ensure you have positive reinforcements and
Yeah,
stay motivated.
yeah.
Awesome. Aditi, thank you. It was so nice talking to you. And
तुम्हारा रिजल्ट डिसाइड नहीं करता है कि तुम लूजर हो कि नहीं, तुम्हारी कोशिश डिसाइड करती है।
आपके सामने एक बड़ा सा रेड बटन है।